Chapter 26. There wasn't much to say that horrible last day. Just a strange kiss. And now something was amiss. I knew it was our final goodbye. I held my breath, pretending not to die. Everything seems different in daylight, when sobriety replaces turmoil. Jenny read the newspaper in the morning and made a mental note to go and get her thicker jacket from the basement. Autumn was getting chilly, or was the fear in her heart? On her way to school, she tried to reconstruct Saturday night, tried to understand if it had really been as awful as it had felt. Had Peter really made out with that skinny bitch? Maybe they had just talked. Maybe he had just had his arm around her a short while. Maybe he even knew her well. Maybe she was a good friend. And if she wasn't, who was she to judge? Had he said he would be loyal to her all of his life? No, for 2.5 months now. Ever since school had started again, he had patiently waited, been with her whenever she was available, done something else when she was not. When she had first met him, she had not expected them to be together this long. She had always expected him to leave. Now, in some strange way, she had grown accustomed to the idea that he was around, that he would show up at the weirdest times and brighten up her life. She had begun to take it for granted. Suddenly all was clear. That was the problem. She had begun taking him for granted. The realization was a relief. She opened her locker and hung her jacket in it. She felt warmer. She would not need to get a winter jacket yet. She only needed to bring the fun back in her relationship with Peter. It was time for her to surprise him. She would be the one suggesting fun, unusual things for once. When she walked to chemistry class, she was smiling. She would not lose Peter. Of course she wouldn't. She was still in a good mood during the lunch break when she and Agneta decided to sit outside for a while before the religious studies class. When they got out, Peter came walking across the schoolyard with his soft, smooth way of moving. His hair reflected the autumn sun, and Jenny felt a joy creeping up her body from her knees all the way to her stomach. She hurried towards him, smiling. When she met his gaze, she froze, stopped by a wall of impenetrable cold. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. Everything looked as usual. The people of Gothenburg moved about. The cars stopped at the red lights. The light panel at the Scandinavium Arena changed its text at the usual pace. She was in school, as she always was at this time, and Peter had come to talk to her. And yet, something was terribly and horribly wrong. There was something in his eyes, something in his voice, something she didn't understand. He talked, he said something, she had to listen, but just couldn't. What he said sounded so strange. He put something in her hand, a CD he had borrowed. He said something about leaving, going away, that if he had anything at her place, she could just keep it. She drew a sharp breath, and Peter looked at her, wondering, hoping. She could not get air. Everything was so strange. She had to shape up, had to breathe, but she could not, so she just stopped. She held her breath. It was easier that way. Then he would not hear, would not see, would not understand how incredibly much it hurt. She heard him say, "Good luck," and heard herself say, "You too," with a voice she didn't recognize. Just when she thought he was gone and that it was all over, he turned around and looked at her for a long, long time, came back, bent forward and kissed her, briefly and intensely. A farewell kiss. She closed her eyes, felt his lips against hers, felt them disappear, felt her lips slowly shrivel up, shrink, disappear, felt how the whole world was getting smaller, grayer, blurred. The world was spinning. There, she saw a face, something familiar, something she needed. It was Agneta's eyes, Agneta's hands supporting her, Agneta's voice calming her, Agneta putting her on the bench. Agneta was still there. Peter was gone, and he would not come back. He was gone, and she had driven him away.